Welcome, everyone, to the 2023 NFL Hunger Games. I'm Nathan Dodd of SPCYT, and this is how the Hunger Games work. So there are 12 districts in the Hunger Game franchises, and 12 teams who have not won a Super Bowl. Some of you may see where this is going. For each district is an NFL team who has failed to win a Super Bowl. Here are the teams that will be representing. In District 1, we have the Arizona Cardinals with Larry Fitzgerald, Roger Ware-Healy, Aeneas Williams, and Dan Dierdorf. In District 2, we have the Atlantic Falcons with Matt Ryans, Julio Jones, Michael Vick, and Deion Sanders. In District 3, with the Buffalo Bills, we have Bruce Smith, Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, and Josh Allen. In District 4, we have the Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton, Greg Olsen, Luke Kuechly, and Steve Smith. In District 5, you have the Cincinnati Bengals with Anthony Munoz, Ken Anderson, Boomer Esiason, and Chad Ochocinco. In District 6, we have the Cleveland Browns with Joe Thomas, Ozzie Newsome, Leroy Kelly, Jim Brown. In District 7, we have the Detroit Lions with Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, Matthew Stafford, and Herman Moore. In District 8, we have the Houston Texans, the youngest team, with DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, Andre Johnson, and Dwayne Brown. In District 9, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars with Fred Taylor, Jimmy Smith, Mark Brunell, and Tony Baselli. In District 10, we have the Los Angeles Chargers with Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, and Junior Seau. In District 11, we have the Minnesota Vikings with Randy Moss, Adrian Peterson, Fran Tarkenton, got it, and Randall McDaniel. And finally, in District 12, we have the Tennessee Titans with Bruce Smith, Steve McNair, Eddie George, and Derrick Henry. These are the players' regular Hunger Game rules. This will go on and on and on until one is left surviving, and whoever survives will win the 2023 NFL Hunger Games. Let's go to the first day. Day 1. As the tributes stand on the podium, the horn sounds. Adrian Peterson runs away from the cornucopia. Michael Vick runs away from the cornucopia. DeAndre Hopkins throws a knife into Antonio Gates' head. Greg Olsen runs away from the cornucopia. Junior Seau overpowers Julio Jones, killing him. Phillip Rivers and Ozzie Newsome run away from the cornucopia. Eddie George strangles Mark Brunell with a rope. Chad Ochocinco finds Larry Fitzgerald hiding in the cornucopia, but Fitzgerald kills him. Fred Taylor, and Bruce Smith run away from the cornucopia. Ken Anderson clutches a first aid kick and runaways. Roger Ware-Healy takes a spear from the inside of the cornucopia. I hope I'm saying that right. LaDainian Tomlinson and Andre Johnson fight for a bag. Andre Johnson gives up and retreats. Randall McDaniel runs away from the cornucopia. Anthony Munoz takes a sickle from inside the cornucopia. Calvin Johnson, Joe Thomas, Jim Brown, and Tony Baselli share everything they gathered before running. Dwayne Brown and Bruce Smith run away from the cornucopia. Matthew Stafford takes a handful of throwing knives. Fran Tarkenton runs away from the cornucopia. Jim Kelly runs to the cornucopia and hides. Herman Moore and Leroy Kelly run away from the cornucopia. Cam Newton takes a handful of throwing knives. Andre Reed, Deion Sanders, and Boomer Esiason work together to get as many supplies as possible. Luke Kuechly, Jimmy Smith, and Steve Smith all run away from the cornucopia. Matt Ryan scares Derrick Henry away from the cornucopia. Steve McNair breaks Josh Allen's nose for a basket of bread. Dan Dierdorf grabs a shield, leaning on the cornucopia. J.J. Watt snatches a pair of size. Aeneas Williams runs away from the cornucopia. And Randy Moss breaks Barry Sanders' nose for a basket of bread. Day 1 continues. Jim Brown receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Fred Taylor begs for Jim Kelly to kill him, but he refuses, keeping Fred Taylor alive. Andre Johnson decapitates Matthew Stafford with a sword. Oh my god. Adrian Peterson sprains his ankle while running away from Andre Reed. Luke Kuechly injures himself. Bruce Smith overhears Michael Vick and Cam Newton talking in the distance. Calvin Johnson stalks Ozzie Newsome. Junior Seau tends to Greg Olson's wounds. Deion Sanders, Annie S. Williams, Larry Fitzgerald, Barry Sanders raid Eddie George's camp while he's hunting. Tony Baselli injures himself. Herman Moore begs for J.J. Watt to kill him. He refuses, keeping Herman Moore alive. Ken Anderson receives fresh fruit from an unknown sponsor. Fran Tarkenton searches for firewood. Randy Moss constructs a shack. Dan Dierdorf and Boomer Esiason hunt for other tributes. Joe Thomas, Steve Smith, DeAndre Hopkins, Roger Riley, and Bruce Smith hunt for other tributes. Jimmy Smith constructs a shack. Randall McDaniel tends to Leroy Kelly's ruins. Philip Rivers travels to higher ground. Anthony Munoz hunts for other tributes. Dwayne Brown attacks Steve McNair, but he manages to escape. Derrick Henry constructs a shack. Josh Allen tries to sleep through the entire day. Matt Ryan and LaDainian Tomlinson split up to search for resources. 5 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. These are the people who have died so far. From District 10 of the Los Angeles Chargers, Antonio Gates. From District 2 of the Falcons, Julio Jones, Mark Brunell, Chad Ochocinco, and Matthew Stafford. Now, on to night 1. Matt Ryan attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Deion Sanders sets up camp for the night. Cam Newton convinces Andre Reed to not kill him, only to kill him instead. Andre Peterson kills Aeneas Williams with his own weapon. Fred Taylor, Larry Fitzgerald, Herman Moore, and Calvin Johnson tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Eddie George goes to sleep. Jim Brown and Frank Tarkenton sleep in shifts. Junior Seau look at the night sky. Leroy Kelly stays awake all night. J.J. Watt forces Ken Anderson to kill Barry Sanders or Roger Riley. He refuses to kill, so J.J. Watt kills him instead. Randy Moss thinks about home. LaDainian Tomlinson screams for help. Dan Dierdorf receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Michael Vick is awoken by nightmares, probably of dogs getting back at him. Boomer Esiason fends Tony Baselli, Joe Thomas, and DeAndre Hopkins away from his fire. Dwayne Brown poisons Andre Johnson's drinks. He drinks it and dies. Ozzie Newsome lets Philip Rivers into his shelter. Jim Kelly and Steve McNair huddle for warmth. Bruce Smith goes for sleep. Greg Olson screams for help. Josh Allen tries to treat his infection. Bruce Smith attempts to start a fire but is unsuccessful. Randall McDaniel and Luke Kuechly huddle for warmth. Anthony Munoz lets Steve Smith into his shelter, and Derrick Henry tends to Jimmy Smith's wounds. Day 2. J.J. Watt and Larry Fitzgerald fight Bruce Smith and Leroy Kelly. Bruce Smith and Leroy Kelly survive. Fran Tarkenton chases DeAndre Hopkins. Tony Baselli and Jim Kelly hunt for other tributes. Jimmy Smith and Matt Ryan work together for the day. Ozzie Newsome searches for a water source. Randall McDaniel begs for Joe Thomas to kill him. He refuses, keeping Randall McDaniel alive. Michael Vick camouflages himself in the bushes. Fred Taylor explores the arena. Bruce Smith attacks Anthony Munoz, but he manages to escape. Herman Moore scares Dwayne Brown off. Eddie George receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Calvin Johnson injures himself. Dan Dierdorf defeats Dan McNair in a fight, but spares his life. Cam Newton describes the river. Roger Riley steals from Greg Olson when he isn't looking. Deion Sanders searches for a water source. Adrian Peterson delivers LaDainian Tomlinson's attention and runs away. Boomer Esiason scares Steve Smith off. Luke Kuechly defeats Philip Rivers in a fight, but spares his life. Barry Sanders diverts Randy Moss's attention and runs away. Junior Seau sprains his ankle while running away from Jim Brown. Derrick Henry tries to spear with a trident, and Josh Allen goes hunting. 6 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. The 6 that are dead are Andre Reed, Aeneas Williams, Ken Anderson, Andre Johnson, J.J. Watt, and Larry Fitzgerald. Night 2. Philip Rivers repeatedly stabs Herman Moore to death with sighs. Jimmy Smith, Leroy Kelly, Jim Brown, Bruce Smith, and Steve McNair track down and kill Joe Thomas. Jesus Christ. Barry Sanders, Bruce Smith, and Greg Olsen sleep in shifts. Jim Kelly quietly hums. Ozzie Newsome begs for Anthony Munoz to kill him. He refuses, keeping Ozzie Newsome alive. A lot of these players have very mental issues. That's not good. We don't need another Johnny Manziel situation happening. I'm glad he's okay. I think he's okay. All I know is that he didn't kill himself. I think he attempted to. Anyway, we're getting off track. Yeah. Randy Moss and Luke Kuechly huddle for warmth. Michael Vick, Dan Dierdorf, and Junior Seau cheerfully sing songs together. Calvin Johnson, Derrick Henry, Tony Baselli, and Eddie George sleep in shifts. Steve Smith, Fred Taylor, Josh Allen, and Matt Ryan sleep in shifts. Adrian Peterson stays awake all night. Randall McDaniel lets Roger Ware Haley into his shelter. Deion Sanders, Dwayne Brown, and LaDainian Tomlinson discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Cam sees a fire but stays hidden. DeAndre Hopkins and Fran Tarkenton hold hands. Hey, yo, wait a minute. Boomer Esiason bleeds out due to untreated injuries. Day 3, Steve McNair boshes Michael Vick's head against a rock several times. Derrick Henry receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Eddie George discovers the cage. Fran Tarkenton overhears Adrian Peterson and Greg Olsen talking in the distance. Tony Baselli shoots an arrow into Phillip Rivers' head. Josh Allen receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. LaDainian Tomlinson is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Calvin Johnson sees smoke rising in the distance but decides not to investigate. Bruce Smith injures himself. Dan Dierdorf, Anthony Munoz, and Barry Sanders unsuccessfully ambush Steve Smith, Dwayne Brown, and Deion Sanders, who kill them instead. Jim Brown scares DeAndre Hopkins off. Randy Moss pushes Jimmy Smith off a cliff during a knife fight, which I guess that's one way to do it. Leroy Kelly injures himself. Ozzie Newsome searches for firewood. Randall McDaniel injures himself. Matt Ryan receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Jim Kelly stalks Junior Seau. Luke Kuechly tends to Fred Taylor's wounds. Cam Newton goes hunting. Bruce Smith and Roger Ware Haley split up to search for resources. 9 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Herman Moore, Joe Thomas, Boomer Esiason, Michael Vick, Phillip Rivers, Dan Dierdorf, Anthony Munoz, Barry Sanders, and Jimmy Smith. And looking at the status right now, the Cincinnati Bengals are the first team to be eliminated. All 4 of their players are gone. Now, on to night 3. Cam Newton, Greg Olsen, and Jim Brown cheerfully sing songs together. Luke Kuechly and Junior Seau hold hands, ayo. Derrick Henry fends Tony Baselli, Fred Taylor, and Ozzie Newsome away from fire. Steve Smith attempts to start a fire but is unsuccessful. Dwayne Brown screams for help. Fran Tarkenton, DeAndre Hopkins, Steve McNair, Eddie George, and Adrian Peterson sleep in shifts. Randy Moss thinks about home. Bruce Smith destroys Roger Haley's supplies while he is asleep. Matt Ryan begs for Randall McDaniel to kill him. He refuses, keeping Matt Ryan alive. Jim Kelly and Leroy Kelly sleep in shifts. Deion Sanders loses sight of where he is. Calvin Johnson, Bruce Smith, and Josh Allen cheerfully sing songs together. LaDainian Tomlinson attempts to start a fire but is unsuccessful. Day 4. LaDainian Tomlinson travels to higher ground. Fred Taylor receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Dwayne Brown questions his sanity. Randall McDaniel diverts Junior Seau's attention away and runs. Randy Moss searches for firewood. Tony Baselli and Luke Kuechly work together for the day. Roger Ware Haley stalks Eddie George. Ozzie Newsome thinks about home. Steve Smith chases Matt Ryan. Fran Tarkenton explores the arena. Derrick Henry receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Jim Kelly makes a slingshot. Deion Sanders picks flowers. Steve McNair hunts for other tributes. Adrian Peterson throws a knife into Bruce Smith's chest. Calvin Johnson questions his sanity. Bruce Smith is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Josh Allen runs away from Greg Olsen. DeAndre Hopkins practices archery. Jim Brown stalks Cam Newton. And Leroy Kelly tries to sleep through the entire day. 1 cannon shot can be heard in the distance. The only person who died was Bruce Smith. Night 4. Greg Olsen sees a fire but stays hidden. Derrick Henry, Steve McNair, LaDainian Thompson, Cam Newton, and Leroy Kelly sleep in shifts. Junior CO thinks about winning. Josh Allen tends to his wounds. Jim Brown lets Tony Baselli into his shelter. Fred Taylor convinces Matt Ryan to snuggle with him. Wait a minute. Lou Kuechly, Jim Kelly, Adrian Peterson, and Deion Sanders form a suicide pact, killing themselves. What the I thought I said we were going to stop with the mental issues. Jesus! Oh my God! What the hell, dudes? Damn! Oh, moving on. Fran Tarkenton climbs a tree to rest. Calvin Johnson dies from hunger. Damn. Bruce Smith overpowers Randall McDaniel, killing him. Roger Healy also dies from hunger. Eddie George ambushes Randy Moss and kills him. Dwayne Brown defeats Newsome in a fight but spares his life. Steve Smith thinks about home. DeAndre Hopkins receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Ozzie Newsome sets off an explosive, killing Josh Allen. Tony Baselli receives fresh fruit from an unknown sponsor. Cam Newton scares Leroy Kelly off. Derrick Henry runs away from Eddie George. Fred Taylor defeats Fran Tarkenton in a fight but spares his life. Junior Seau chases Greg Olsen. Steve Smith spears DeAndre Hopkins in the abdomen. Bruce Smith travels to higher ground. Dwayne Brown, Jim Brown, Matt Ryan, and LaDainian Thompson hunt for other tributes. Steve McNair camouflages himself in the bushes. Uh-oh! Arena event. The arena turns pitch black and nobody can see a thing. This is what happens. Derrick Henry accidentally makes contact with spiny lethal plant life. LaDainian Thompson flails his weapon around, accidentally killing Steve Smith. Eddie George and Ozzie Newsome both survive. Dwayne Brown flails his weapon around, accidentally killing Greg Olsen. Matt Ryan, Steve McNair, and Tony Baselli survive. Fran Tarkenton accidentally makes contact with spiny lethal plant life. And Bruce Smith flails his weapon around, accidentally killing Cam Newton, Junior Seau, Jim Brown, Fred Taylor, and Leroy Kelly. 15 motherfucking cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Luke Kuechly, Jim Kelly, Adrian Peterson, Deion Sanders, Calvin Johnson, Randall McDaniel, Roger Healy, Randy Moss, Josh Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, Steve Smith, Greg Olsen, Fran Tarkenton, Cam Newton. And now, looking at this, a bunch of teams have been eliminated. The Arizona Cardinals are eliminated. The Carolina Panthers are eliminated. The Detroit Lions are eliminated. And the Minnesota Vikings are eliminated. The only teams remaining are Falcons, Bills, Browns with 3 people, Texans, Jags, Chargers, and Titans. Let's go on to the next day. Ozzie Newsome lets Junior Seau into his shelter. Bruce Smith passes out from exhaustion. Steve McNair and LaDainian Thompson tell stories about themselves to each other. Matt Ryan and Tony Baselli run to each other and decide to truce for the night. Dwayne Brown starts a fire. Jim Brown throws a knife into Eddie George's head. Leroy Kelly destroys Fred Taylor's supplies while he is asleep. And now we have a feast. The cornucopia is replenished with food, supplies, weapons, and memoirs from the tributes' families. Matt Ryan stabs Ozzie Newsome in the back with a trident. LaDainian Thompson, Fred Taylor, Junior Seau, Jim Brown, Bruce Smith, and Dwayne Brown all decide not to go to the feast. Probably a good thing because Tony Baselli set off an explosive, killing Leroy Kelly and Steve McNair. And then on day 6, the day after the feast, Jim Brown, Tony Baselli, and Junior Seau hunt for other tributes. Dwayne Brown dies trying to escape the arena. That's a dumb idea. Matt Ryan and Bruce Smith receive clean water from an unknown sponsor. Fred Taylor begs for LaDainian Thompson to kill him. He refuses, keeping Fred Taylor alive. Arena event. A fire spreads throughout the arena. The fire catches up to Matt Ryan, killing him. Jim Brown survives. A fireball strikes Bruce Smith, killing him. Tony Baselli survives. Junior So kills Fred Taylor in order to utilize a body of water safely. What the hell? I mean, that's smart, but still. And LaDainian Tomlinson survives. 8 cannon shots are heard. There are now 3 teams left remaining. Here are our final 4. From District Cleveland, we have Jim Brown with 2 kills on his belt. From District Jacksonville, we have Tony Baselli with 3 kills. And from District Chargers, LaDainian Tomlinson and Junior Seau are both alive. Both have a combined 3 kills. Let's go to night 6. Tony Baselli, Junior Seau, and Jim Brown sleep in shifts. LaDainian Tomlinson receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Day 7. Tony Baselli discards the cave. LaDainian Tomlinson tries to spearfish with a trident. Jim Brown tries to spearfish with a trident. And Junior Seau dies from hunger. 1 cannon shot can be heard in the distance. Night 7. Final 3. Tomlinson, Brown, and Baselli. Now things will get rapid fire fast. LaDainian Tomlinson and Jim Brown talk about the tribute still alive, while Tony Baselli questions his sanity. Day 8. LaDainian Tomlinson discards a river. Jim Brown receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor, and Tony Baselli thinks about home. For the first time in the 2023 NFL Hunger Games, no cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Nobody has died. Yet. Night 8. Jim Brown quietly hums. LaDainian Tomlinson passes out from exhaustion, and Tony Baselli cries himself to sleep. Day 9. Tony Baselli hunts for other tributes, and LaDainian Tomlinson tracks down and kills Jim Brown. 1 cannon shot can be heard from the distance. Mr. Jim Brown, rest in peace, both in real life and in the Hunger Games, has died. This is it. The final 2. From the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tony Baselli with 3 kills. And from District Los Angeles, the holder for the most rushing touchdowns in a season. From the Los Angeles Chargers is LaDainian Tomlinson. Final 2, Jaguars or Chargers, who will win the 2023 NFL Hunger Games? Only one can win. Night 9, LaDainian Tomlinson taints Tony Baselli's food, killing him. And just like that, LaDainian Tomlinson wins the NFL Hunger Games for the Los Angeles Chargers. They may not have a Lombardi, but they have the Hunger Games in it. And actually, the prize trophy is the Lombardi trophy. So the Chargers are no longer Lombardi-less. They escape. 11 teams are remain Lombardi-less. But here is the top 3. Top 3 for placements. Jim Brown, Tony Baselli, and LaDainian Tomlinson. Top 3 in district placements. District 6, District 9, and District 10. And the MVP, while he didn't win, he scored the most kills with 5 from the Houston Texans offensive lineman Dwayne Brown. And that is it for the 2023 NFL Hunger Games. We will see you again in December of 2024 for the next NFL Hunger Games. This time with only 11 teams, because the Chargers will not be participating, for they have won a Lombardi. I'm Nathan Dodd of SBCYT. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.